Hey guys, Shannon here. Today I wanted to talk about a few things that you might want to consider before starting a career in death care. Of course, all of these things are just my personal opinions and based on my own personal experiences. Only you can really decide if a career in death care is right for you. The first thing to think about might seem obvious to most of you, but it's still something that you'll want to take into consideration, and that is your comfort level around death. Obviously, if you're working in death care, you are going to be dealing with death on a regular basis, and this includes being around those who have passed away, dealing with families who are bereaved, talking about death, different methods of death, things like that. So you'll want to gauge your comfort level around death in general. The next thing that you may want to consider before starting a career in death care is your comfort level around religion. If you have religious trauma or have a hard time being around religious people or ceremonies, it may be difficult for you to be in death care. I don't think it's impossible, but you have to realize that you will be in churches a lot. Your mileage may vary depending on where you live. I, for example, live in Utah, and so most of the funerals that I do are for members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If being in churches and around religious ceremonies and prayers and things like that is difficult for you, that doesn't necessarily mean you can't have a career in death care. That might just mean that you need to gauge what you're comfortable doing. You may be more of a behind-the-scenes person working mostly on embalmings or even just with families doing arrangements or removals. Another thing to think about, which is probably the thing I struggle the most with, is your physical strength. My professor has told me and my cohort that if you are not already lifting weights, you are already behind. You need to start lifting weights and get into that habit and that routine. This is not something I'm great at, and I'm not physically very strong. I am an apprentice funeral director at the moment, and between our two locations, I am the only female funeral director. Because of this, I do get a little bit self-conscious of any time I am overly emotional or am not able to lift a decedent. And it's not even because my boss or my coworkers make me feel insecure about that, it's just my own insecurities showing through. Because I'm the only female funeral director, I kind of feel a need to prove myself, and so I get a little bit embarrassed if I get too emotional about something or have trouble on a removal. So physical strength is something that I didn't really consider before going into this profession, but it is absolutely a big part of it. I know that I myself need to be better about lifting weights and trying to build up my physical endurance, because when you're doing removals, you don't get to really choose what the situation is. You might be on the third floor of an apartment building. You might have a decedent, in a bad position because they're on the floor or in a tightly wedged corner. You may have people that are a little bit heavier to move. These are all things to consider because you can't really choose what your removal is going to be like. I am very fortunate that the firm that I'm with, we don't ever go out on house calls by ourselves. We always send at least 2 funeral directors. But there have been times when I've gone to a care center, like a nursing home or a hospital, and the staff there just isn't really able to assist me, and so I'm kind of on my own with moving a decedent from the hospital bed onto a cot. That can be really difficult, and even if you have somebody with you, it's never easy to carry a body down the stairs. It's never easy to carry a body on switchback stairs. It's never easy to get a body out of a difficult position, even if you're not by yourself. So physical strength is something to consider. It doesn't mean that if you're not strong, you can't do this, because I'm not very strong and I've been doing this for a little over a year now. I also know that it's something I need to work on, and it's one of those things that I need to build up because it's hard. It's really hard not being very strong and having to go out on removals. Another thing you'll want to consider are the harder aspects of this job. So I myself am a mother. I have 3 young kids. They are 3, 5, and 7. I mean, even if you don't have kids, having to take care of children in this profession is always difficult. Funeral directors at the mortuary I work at can all agree that the hardest days are the ones where we have to take care of children. I wouldn't say that if you feel like, oh, this is going to be really hard, that you should absolutely say that you're never going to be in death care, because I think you'll be surprised what you can handle. We've had cases where we have a decedent that is the same age as my children and has the same interests as my children, and it's just a hard day. Nothing can really prepare you for that, and it's never easy to have to embalm a child. Even when you're not embalming and you just have to dress that child, it's still just gonna be hard, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it. That's kind of one of those things that you have to gauge for yourself, and honestly, I feel like you need to experience it before you can rule out death care as a profession for you. Because if you had asked me before I got into this if I thought I could handle working on a child as a mortician, I probably would have said no. But what I've noticed now is whenever we get a first call that is for a fetal demise or a child or someone that we have to pick up from the children's hospital, I'm the one that wants to go on those calls. And it's not because of some morbid side of me, it's because of that protective, motherly side of myself, where I want to be the one to take care of that child because I want to be able to nurture them, and I want to be able to assure the family that they are being taken care of and being loved and being cared for. It seems like it would be devastating, and in some regards it is, but at the same time, you are providing a service for a family that they can't provide for themselves, and you are giving them the assurance that their baby or their child is being taken care of by somebody who actually cares. That is invaluable. It's the most important thing, and it's become a part of the job that, even though it's really hard and I don't necessarily look forward to it, it's kind of shown me that I'm stronger than I think I am. And I think that if you are considering a career in death care, I think you'll be surprised at how strong you actually are and what you can actually endure. Another thing to consider if you are looking into death care as a career is your queasiness level. Unfortunately, there's just no getting around it. There are a lot of smells when it comes to death care, and I'm not just talking about bodies, but also chemicals. I'm very sensitive to chemicals, and because of this, I wear a full respirator mask when I'm embalming. My coworkers don't have to wear a full respirator. They just do the basic PPE and they're fine, and that is great, but I'm very sensitive to the chemical smells and it burns my eyes and my throat, and so I enjoy wearing a respirator. I don't think I would say I enjoy it, actually. It's kind of a pain in the butt because it leaves these lines all over my face. I enjoy that I can still embalm even though I'm sensitive to chemicals because I have a respirator. So you'll kind of need to gauge your own level of comfort around things that can be unpleasant sometimes. It's just like gauging your comfort level with death in general. You need to know if you're okay with the sight of blood, with smells and odors and different circumstances that you may find bodies in. Lastly, I think the biggest thing to consider before getting into death care is just your reason for getting into it, why you want to do it. I think a lot of people consider the field because it's kind of spooky and morbid and a little bit macabre sounding, and they like spooky things. And trust me, I get that. I love spooky things. I was born at midnight in October. I'm totally all about the spooky stuff. But the actual reason that I wanted to get into this field is because I wanted to be able to help people. I want to be able to take care of a person's loved one when they're in such a vulnerable and difficult state and be able to reassure them that I'm going to take such good care of their loved one and I'm going to respect them. I think that if you get into death care simply because you like spooky things, it's not going to be quite as rewarding and you may burn out faster. So really considering the reason you want to do this is really important. And again, if you like it because it's spooky or that's part of why you like it, that's great. Trust me, I get it. I'm all about the spooky. I am a horror author. I write horror novels, so I definitely love spooky stuff. But I don't think that a love of spooky things is enough to sustain you through the career that will give you really high highs and low lows. You need to be in it for more than just the ability to say, I'm a mortician, although I do really love that. I love when people ask me what my job is. My poor husband, anytime we go somewhere and people ask, oh, what do you do? He just kind of looks at me like, here we go. She's about to go off on the whole, I'm a mortician, because I do love saying that. And part of that is because I love spooky stuff. But that's not the main reason I do this. I do it because I love helping people. I love feeding that nurturing part of my soul. I love being able to utilize my empathy in my career. I'll be the first one to admit I have a lot of faults and I don't have a ton of strengths, but one strength I absolutely have is my ability to connect with people and have empathy for people, even if they're different than me, even if we're in different situations, even if I haven't experienced what they've experienced. I love connecting with people. I love connecting with families, and it's my favorite part of my job. It's funny because I actually got into this field thinking I only wanted to embalm. I was hoping to be in the back room the whole time and never have to meet with families, and now connecting with families is my favorite part of the job. I absolutely love getting to know these amazing people and being trusted with someone who's so important to them. So those are just a few things that you might want to consider if you are thinking about a career in death care. Again, none of these should be deal breakers for you, because until you actually job shadow or experience the job, you can't really know for sure if you'll be okay with something. So if any of these things apply to you and now you're thinking, maybe I shouldn't be in death care, that's not at all what this is. These are just things to kind of take into account and be mindful of as you continue your journey towards your death care career. And again, I think you'll be surprised by just how strong you are and how much you can handle, and you might even be surprised by the parts of the job that you love. If you enjoyed this kind of more long form video, let me know in the comments below. Mostly I've just been doing shorts, but I would like to kind of get into these longer videos so we can kind of get into the nitty-gritty of death care and the things that I love about it, the things that are hard, just all of it. Drop a comment down below with what you'd like me to talk about next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.